What happens when two seasoned business leaders get together? They talk shop, of course. Sit back and listen in as Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso share from their experience around current issues facing executives, entrepreneurs, and their leadership teams. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, Scott DeLong with the CEO Podcast. I'm here as always with Vince Moiso, and we have a special guest today, Marc Koehler. Marc runs a company called Lead with Purpose. I came across Marc 4 years ago now, maybe? Yeah. Working with a client, actually someone that's been on the show, Troy Hoffman. Marc was working with them on their one-page plan, and we'll get into what that means, right? And then I came in and worked on some other things with the company, and you used to see us standing up, right? He's like about this tall and I'm about this tall, but they were calling us the twins because I don't know why he hired both of us, because we're doing the same stuff. Right? It's the same work. I mean, maybe a little different angle on the same work, but it's like, and I told him, Troy, you don't need both of us. Oh yeah, I do.
You know the funny thing about that is that you went to Troy and said, hey, you don't need me. Yeah. You need Marc. And I went to Troy and said, hey, you don't need me. You need Scott. Yeah,
like we do the same thing. I love that. Pick one, right? Yeah, because we're going to say pretty much the same thing in different ways. Yeah. And
humble servants.
So when you get into leadership conversations, it really is. It's really taking care of other people. And the biggest job that a leader has, in my mind, is to build new leaders. Yeah. Build more of those. Sure, things have to get done. We have some short-term things that have to get done. The thing has to ship. We have to build this. We have to do that. Yeah. But that's what the managers end up doing. The leader needs to build people.
Yeah. No question. So, I think the discussion today is around the important work that both of you guys do. And I having worked for a number of years with both of you. I mean, Marc, you and I go back, I want to say 6 or 7 years when you first came and presented to my forum, my EO forum. And that's when I first got introduced to even, what you were doing in the platform. Then with my business, we've since adopted that for the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And we've really become, absolute power users of it. Yeah. And I couldn't imagine not using it, So that's pretty incredible. And I think you've developed a method, a system, and a platform to really enhance, I think, what leaders as a business could do and how communication happens. And then, while some of the work that both of you guys do cross over, because Scott does a ton of work with the business as well, and having gone through his communication courses over the years and EQ among many other things, is I think Scott has a very, very different approach. And so I think of it as I heard you guys talk about that. I know exactly why Troy hired both of you.
Maybe. Yeah. And we're talking about the same thing, but just from different angles.
Yeah. But I think that perspective is so important, and I think any organization could benefit from that. And in fact, that's it's a good segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is really a focus on that type of leadership. And what's important about that is developing people, right? Like it's not just about the business. And while the impact, or the biggest impact that you guys tend to have, may be on a business or on a business owner, what you do is you develop people. I mean, and that carries over into someone's personal life. And in fact, Marc, you've then created your platform for families, right? Because you recognized early on, whoa, I've got something here that goes well beyond just a business, and it carries over to people's personal lives. So why don't you just spend a few minutes to tell our listeners about yourself and about your business, and to talk a little bit about the platform, and then let's jump into the conversation.
Yeah. So in 1986, I saw a little-known movie called Top Gun, and I was a junior in college, right? And so I went into the Navy recruiting office, took all the tests, and they came back to me at the end and said, you got to take one more test. You got to take it over again. And I said, well, what is it? So they had me sit down, seated thigh bone test. My thigh bone was 1/8 of an inch too long to sit in a jet.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So literally, you guys, I left the recruiting office. I mean, I was crushed. I had this vision of me sitting on a motorcycle with some, hot chick, off the end, but as the door was hitting me in the butt,
see, tall and good looking doesn't help.
yeah, I know exactly. So as the door was hitting me in the butt, the recruiter said, "Hey, if you thought about going in the submarine force," and one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I traveled that entire journey and got stationed out in San Diego, and at the age of 23, I was helping to drive $1 billion submarine on missions critical to national security. Wow. I just looked at it. I was underneath the surface of the ocean for 1,086 days. Like, it's like, oh my gosh. But I had some fantastic experiences. They have a structure and a framework because the Western Pacific it's a cruel, unforgiving ocean. And so how do we get 110 men, average age 22 years old, to operate $1 billion nuclear submarine, missions critical to national security?
Yeah.
And it's because there's a framework.
Yeah.
There's a system that's in place. And so I got out, I went to work for Honeywell for about 6 years, but then I fell into doing turnarounds. And I tried to bring the big tools from Honeywell to the small businesses, almost killed them because they were just too big and wieldy. I went back to the submarine force and brought forward a bunch of tools, and I was able to take and recreate what we had in the submarine force. And that's, how do you create engaged teams, empowered to make decisions, ones that are really aligned, but also extremely adaptable and flexible. Because most people think, hey, if something's going to be aligned, right, it's got to be really rigid.
Yeah.
But how do you adjust and shift on the fly? So that's the Lead with Purpose platform. And you're saying that I noticed that I had an opportunity with the Family with Purpose, something to do the same thing with the family, like one-page business plan, one-page family plan. That was through tremendous pain because I was being highly successful, as a business owner and as a business leader, but I was coming home and I was failing in the other leadership areas of my life. I mean, namely as a husband and a father. Yeah. So that's where, that's where I saw the Family with Purpose opportunity. It was out of pain.
I get it.
So what's interesting to me is that, so as I started my leadership journey, I've always been a strong manager and, kind of the command and control type of manager. Up until the time I hit about 50, and then I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be something different.
Right.
And what I found first is that people at work responded really well. People at home responded so much better to the new version.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't an immediate change over it. It's a gradual change. Change just doesn't happen, right? But what I found was that the techniques that we teach in business for leadership, not for management, but for leadership, work at home too. And that's why I was really excited for you when you did the Lead with Purpose process for the family.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about your system.
Yeah.
So we're talking about it because we know about it, but tell people what this one-page plan looks like.
Yep.
Yeah. So look at, we all know that it's really important in a business to have a clearly defined mission, set of values, and what are the best practices. Right. Those are key. But then when we try to run our families and our personal life, we don't have those things set up.
Yeah.
And so
not even identified.
Right, not even identified.
Not even identified.
So if it's important in business to have a mission statement and a set of values, would it be important if you wanted to have success in your family to have those same things? And it was like, yes.
And be aligned on them.
Right, and yes, and absolutely. And, I think this harkened back to a lot of the days, like in the medieval days, people would have a shield. And on that shield would be a certain set of symbols and colors that represented their values,
who they are,
what they stood for, their family name, their legacy. Yeah. And I think we had lost that. And so I needed a way, because if I was going to continue going down that same path, I was going to continue getting the same results. A wife who was frustrated at home. My kids who, I couldn't even help them with their physics homework.
Or worse, a wife that's going to take half the business success that you just earned.
Right, exactly.
That's very possible for the hard-driven folks. You lose families.
Yeah. So that's what we decided to do. And I just did this. We sat down with the family, put it together with the family. And we were having some conversations earlier on, right? They're like, oh, come on. I don't want to do this. This is what you do at work. But consists of putting together a mission statement for your family, 5 values, and then we don't call them best practices. We call them family rituals. What are the rituals that you're going to do every single day, every single week, every single month?
Yeah.
So that's the third component. Those things are really important. And I can tell you guys, when I actually sat down with my family and I made a commitment to them that this was our mission. This was our values. These were the rituals we were going to follow.
Yeah.
And it was on the refrigerator. Guess what? I was had a lot higher probability that I was going to make those 4 dinners a week with each other, right? Because I'd made a commitment to them and they were holding me accountable. Nothing worse than a 12-year-old saying, hey, how'd that dinner go last night? You know, so I think those are the 3 big ones. I'll just share 2 other ones that we have. Is we have one day makes a difference. It's a play on one day doesn't make a difference. Mm-hmm. Just all the days. Just list all the days that you're going to celebrate: birthdays, celebrations, anniversary. Could be the day you beat cancer.
Yeah.
What are the big ones? And then we help to set goals based around mind, body, and spirit. So there's actually 5 components that make up a one.
So we're going to talk about the process now, because this is important. And the reason I say this is because in my old world, the whole command and control thing, the boss made the decisions and here's where we go, right? Yeah. And that worked for a while. Short term, it works. It's effective because boss is probably a pretty smart guy. Dad's probably a pretty smart guy. He can make us do the thing. Then the resentments come in and all that. Right. So let's talk about how you engage your group to create this one-page plan without you being the one that creates the one-page plan.
Yeah. So I think where there's participation, there's buy-in. Yeah. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing that I took, because I had to do that same thing. I wanted to just sit down and write it out and say, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Here's the plan.
Us. Right here,
here's what we're going to do. But I had learned, I had a bunch of scars on my back from doing that in the business and just going, hey, that's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And I can remember, like, what happened when your mom and dad did that to you, right?
I wanted nothing to do with it.
Right. You're like, I don't want anything to do with it.
You looked to fight it, and then if you had to forced into it, you resented it.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. So
happens that way in a business too.
Yeah. So I created a couple things that I think were really important. I was just doing this on the fly. I didn't know it was going to work. But basically a couple things I did is, one is I had my children interview their grandmothers.
Ah.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So we had a set of questions, and this is all part of there's some stuff that's in there that allows you to do this. We had them interview my mom and my mother-in-law. And at first, the kids didn't want to do it. They were like, oh, I don't want to do this. My mom was like, hey, the kids don't want to spend time with me. And I'm like, no, Mom, they want to spend time with you. I'm like lying to her, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that was one of the big things, because we were going through all of these questions. And it was like, hey, tell me what 5th grade was like. And did you have any pets? And, did you like any boys or anything like that? And the next question was something like, what was your favorite subject in high school? And my middle daughter, Liesl, goes, hey, Uma, tell us about your first kiss. And Scott, you know me, right? So I'm sitting there going, that's not on the checklist. Right? What's going on, right? Yeah. And I'm like, should I let this go? Should I not? What's going to happen? And,
yes, you should.
Yeah. And we had this tremendous experience. I think you guys have heard the story. But basically, my mom was in a rocking chair. She starts rocking back and forth, and she says, well, I was with, Johnny, Sexton, and we were at a movie. I was 16 years old, and we were watching Tarzan, in the 50s, right? And she said, we had popcorn, and she goes, no, I can't tell you. My kids who were laying on the ground up until that time, they get up on their knees. They're like, no, you got to tell us. Like, they're fully engaged, right? And then she starts swaying back and forth again, and next thing she says, well, and then we went over and kissed each other, and then she's like, no, I can't tell you. And then they're standing on their feet. They're going, oh, you got to tell us. And I'm sitting there watching this thing saying, thank God I let it go. And then my mom says, we kissed each other. And when we pulled apart, we had a piece of spit between our mouths for about 5 seconds. And my kids were howling on the ground. And for anyone who's watching this, and for you, that's not the proudest moment of the Koehler family tree. But what it did, you guys, it opened up this tremendous avenue.
One word, connection.
Yeah.
It was the rest of the conversation. I heard stories that I had never heard before. And, there's a lot that's in the roots of our family tree. So I think we started off with that. Yeah. And then the second thing we did is we said, hey, look at future generations are going to look back at what we are doing. And I made it like this Everest mountain climb. Future generations are going to look back and they're going to say, thank you for putting together our family values and our family mantra, our family mission statement, because it's helped us, 4, 5, 6 generations into the future. So
your granddaughters are going to ask you those questions.
Right. So
Great.
Yeah, so I think those were the two big things that really got that participation, and then everything else flowed from there.
Well, I want to talk about, so I'll just talk about my direct experience around it, and having being a user for a number of years on the business side, Lead with Purpose, and then also doing the family one. You talked about buy-in, right? And it's the most challenging. And no surprise, we were talking about the challenge of getting your family to buy in, but I was equally challenged getting the business to buy in. Just getting people within the business. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It does not happen overnight. When you're building out a system that is going to do the things that you've already described, I think one of the highest is just that accountability, right? And clarity. I would use the word clarity too around purpose of the business values. And drive and values. Yeah. That being said, is we didn't get immediate buy-in. It takes time. And participation, engagement, all of that is absolutely necessary. You can't just develop the plan on your own, post it up for everybody to see, and everyone's just going to go, this is perfect. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. It takes time. It's taken several years for us to get what I'd call full engagement, where everybody's using it and everybody's on it and everybody's reviewing it. And I want, with that said, I want to talk about one thing specifically, and we talked about it earlier, and that's recognition and the power of recognition and what that means, to you, and why that's so important.
Explain how that works in the system in Mark's
system. So in the system, it's when you think of it as a digital platform, as you put your values, your mission, vision, purpose. Well, on top of that, what we didn't talk about is we've got very specific quarterly and annual goals and long-term goals that are very clearly spelled out on what we want to do, what we're going to accomplish, and how we're going to accomplish it. So then it breaks it down to a place where we're creating very specific tasks for people within the organization, and those tasks get, notifications get sent out. Everyone's 100% clear on what they need to do when they need to do it, right? And that's what this platform creates. So also on that platform is the ability for all of us, anybody who's an active user within the system, to recognize each other. And so if somebody is living within those values and they're caught living within those values, or someone that is really driving that brand purpose forward and they get caught in the act of doing that, then we're recognizing them. Or for whatever, that doesn't need to be the reason for recognition. It could just be, man, you made my job easier. You made me look really good, or whatever that performance is. It gives you this social platform to recognize. And then the whole, again, all active users get a notification, an email notification of this recognition happening. And then we have our weekly meetings. Right. And the first thing we start off with was, hey, we want to call out all the recognitions that happen. And not everybody's in that meeting, but we'll call that person in so that they can get recognized and know that that recognition is taking place among the entire group. And so it's this really powerful form of recognition. Now it's evolved to the social where, like we talked about, I'm spending my time liking and commenting, and man, this is such a great recognition, love it. And so you've got everybody that's now interacting with this recognition that's taken place. And the power of it is pretty crazy. How people really feel after they get recognized. And so now my favorite part is when, I'm in a one-on-one and, I hear that person go, wow, I really appreciate that recognition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't it crazy?
Right?
It's crazy.
It's so nutty. So I'm curious, and, as I explain all that out, I think this is a big part of the conversation, because where we started off is we're saying, hey, this is about developing human beings, right? Developing people. Does the business benefit from that? Absolutely. But really, we're developing people. And part of it is people like to be recognized. And I think what you've done on this platform is capture the importance of that. Yeah. So what does that mean for you, and why was that so important?
Yeah. You know, in the Navy, I couldn't give out a $5,000 bonus or a huge gift card. Mm-hmm. The only thing I could give out was a slip of paper. I could give out a little medal. And those are the things that I had to use.
Right.
And so really when I look back on it, I saw the tremendous power of just being able to do that. And we all know this, like people really appreciate the monetary piece of being recognized, but it was that simple. And how much does that cost you guys? Literally. Like a little ribbon costs 86 cents.
I got to tell you,
it's nothing.
The most important recognition that I ever gave to somebody wasn't a bonus. There were the Post-it notes that were formed in a star, and it was gold star.
Right.
And I just wrote on there Employee of the Month and put it on this person's laptop, or not their screen.
Right.
It stayed on her desk for 3 months.
Oh yeah.
Like a Post-it note.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a Post-it note. It was recognition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the power of it, Vince, the power of seeing how important that was, and then to make sure you do it in front of others, that drove us to put it into the platform.
Yeah.
And here's the statistic. 86% of employees say they're not being recognized enough by their people, right? And the for the business plan and for the family plan, if you want to be able to be extremely adaptable to dynamically changing conditions.
Yeah.
There's a saying by Roy Disney that said, when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. When you send a recognition, they remember what that recognition is, and we tie the value to it. So when that comes up again in the future, someone looks at that and says, hey, I got recognized for that. And then the reason why we share it with everybody else, guess what everyone else is looking at? Hey, Mark recognized Vince. Right. You're looking at it going like, I want to get recognized by Mark. I'm going to do the same exact behavior.
Yeah.
And so you're driving behavior. And then you don't. Yeah.
Or up it. Right.
Right. And it's not you saying, hey, this is how you handle every single situation. So I think that was the tremendous power that we had, because when you can push decision making deep into your organization, that's when you get a lot of great decisions happening. That's when you as a leader, you're working, less in the business, you're working more on the business, and people just love having decisions pushed down to them. I mean, that engages them also. So I think, that experience, it was tremendous.
I got a bunch of people that all hold each other accountable. I mean, I love when I'm on my huddles in the morning. I love it. I don't do anything.
Right.
It's like
right,
and
exactly.
Just at the end, I'm literally saying, guys, how can I help and support? What do you need from me?
Right.
And that's pretty much it. Like the people right now within the organization that are stepping up as leaders, they all are.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like sometimes I just scratch my head and go, this is just unbelievable.
It's too easy
to be a part of and watch it happen.
Yeah. So I would just add one other thing. If you take a look at your family, and if you want to help develop your children, and when they're in your stead, when they're 8 years old and 12 years old and 14 years old, you're able to say, hey, you shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
Or, hey, that's not a great decision.
Yeah.
And when they're 18 years old and they're away at college, and the first time they get put something in front of them and there's this peer pressure, if you've drilled the values into them, there's something that's gnawing at them saying, hey, you know what? That's not the right decision to do. Yeah. And you give them a chance to have the ability to say no to some of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
can we take a step back on the recognition? Because I want to talk about a fallacy. And the fallacy is this, so at least my belief of the fallacy. So I'm not an introvert, so I shouldn't speak as one. However, one of the complaints that I've heard people say is, oh, don't recognize people in public because the introverts are going to make... Oh,
what?
Oh, yeah. You're going to embarrass that person because they don't like that kind of recognition. I don't know anyone that doesn't like recognition.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I someone says that to me, and I'll do it respectfully, but they are beaming inside.
Yeah.
Beaming inside.
They might be blushing too.
Yeah.
Give you that.
Yeah.
But they are beaming inside.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No.
So
even those that
recognize in public.
Yes.
No doubt, and I think even those, to your point, Scott, and I agree with it, is that even those that say they don't need recognition are full of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those.
Yeah.
Like I often catch myself saying, no, man, I don't need the recognition, but I like the recognition just as much as anybody else. I mean, it's just a reality. It's a human trait.
Yeah.
So now, because I know that about you, that you don't like getting praise and stuff in public, but you do. How do you accept it now? What do you do?
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's the appropriate response.
I know. That's so hard to do.
Not, no, I don't deserve that. I'm disrespecting the person that's going out of their way to recognize me when I say, no, I don't deserve that. Please don't do that.
No, sometimes I literally
say thank you.
I've found myself, I mean, just the awareness of it is so much higher now, but I would just interrupt. I would cut them off.
Oh, yeah.
Before they could even get the recognition out. And no, I don't need, no, I don't deserve that. No, it's just, and it's terrible because really it's as much about the person giving the recognition as much as the person receiving it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other one is that we all do is that, oh, you said something nice to me. I feel I got to do it right back to you.
There you
right?
go.
And
Reciprocation.
I steal your, your thing instead of just saying thank you.
Just thank you. Thank you and shut up.
Yeah.
Now, the only time you don't want to do that is when your wife says, I love you. The appropriate response is not thank you. This is where you have to be reciprocal. I'm just saying. I've tried it. It doesn't work.
Well, there's a whole other level of altruism. I don't know if you guys ever watch Key and Peele, but I mean, not that I want to go down a rabbit hole here, but they have this skit that they do on altruism, right, where they're just one-upping each other on the recognitions, and we go there, we joke. So actually, in our business, we do that all the time. We're at that point where recognitions are such the norm. There is oftentimes this one-up. I'm going to one-up you.
Yeah. Let me just add. Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
Is this has been studied. The highest performing organizations, they have a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative. The highest performing organizations. Now, if you go over 12-to-1, it's like you're giving people, recognition for saying, "Hey, thank you for not going in the bathroom for this long."
It's got to be worthwhile.
Right. But if you're a leader, or if you're at your business, or if you're at home, leading your family, I think one of the biggest things is I always think about it as an emotional bank account. If I can fill the emotional bank account with things that I see, and I can do it very simply, I keep filling it up and I get to 6 and I go, okay, and then when I come to you, Vince, and I've already given you 6 recognitions over the last 3 weeks, and I come to you and I say, hey, can we just, and we do it privately, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I just talked about this one thing. I think we need to get better in this area. You're going to a lot more likely go, Mark has been fair. And you know what? You take a little bit out of the bank, right? But the bank account is always full. So I think a lot of leaders underestimate how powerful it is.
Yep.
Because if I don't fill your bank account, it's at 0, and I say, hey, can we talk? And every single time I say that, I'm going to say, hey, I think we need to get better.
But you can't game that. It's got to be sincere.
Oh, no, it's got to be real.
It's got to be sincere.
Authentic. Authenticity is really critical.
You can't game it just to fill the bank account.
Oh, no, totally.
And I know you're not saying that.
Yeah.
However,
but that's the 12-to-1 example. It's like at that point, it's no longer authentic.
It doesn't mean
and now now it doesn't have the same meaning. It doesn't carry the same power.
Right. Exactly. So,
yeah.
Now
I noticed that with it's interesting too. Is you made me think as you were describing that. Even with my own daughter, I learned the lesson the hard way that boy, recognition is very important to her, and she's put in a lot of work, a lot of hard work, and she's a high achiever.
Yeah.
And boy, I didn't do a great job as a father to really recognize that and make sure that it's known. Right. I'm proud of you, and the work that you have done, it's incredible, and you're deserving of all the accolades and everything else.
So here's another thing, talking about families and some of the mistakes that I made.
And how easy is that to say, by the way?
Oh,
when my kids were young.
And how much we don't say it.
Yeah.
Do you remember when kids were growing up and they'd give the report cards, and there was the effort grade and then the achievement grade?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I did the worst thing I ever did as a parent, at least from my point of view. My kids probably have a different point of view than that. They have a bigger list.
Are we going to bring them in?
They have a greater list than what I'm going to suggest. But one of the things that I did is, they got a B+ in effort and a C- in achievement. Right. And my response, I don't grade on effort. I grade on achievement. What a jerk.
Yeah.
Right? People put in an effort. Credit the effort. Reward the effort, and the achievement will come.
Yeah.
It will. So reward in the recognitions.
Well said.
The efforts that people are making.
Well said.
Not just close the biggest deal that the company's ever had.
Yep.
Right? But the effort that they went to on something that they didn't even get, potentially.
Yeah.
Give them credit for that effort as well, and you'll reap rewards from that.
Yeah, no, tremendous. I'll share one last thing with the recognitions, is that Liesel, my middle daughter, she's off at college. She's a sophomore, and it's in and around St. Patty's Day. And so she says, hey, I have a final tomorrow in math. Mm-hmm. And she says, I'm not sure whether I'm going to show up at the bar at 6 o'clock in the morning, or if I'm going to go to my final. And you guys, I want to tell her like, well, what do you mean? You're going to stay in, right? And I'm like, well, what do you think you should do, right?
There's the St. Patrick's Day next year too.
Yeah, I'm trying to do all these things like coach, mentor, right? And so she makes a choice to not do that and study for the math final. And in Family with Purpose, I sent her from San Diego. She's up in northern LA. I sent her a recognition. I said, hey, thank you for striving for excellence. And she said she got that. And she said, she goes, Dad, that made my day. Like that, it's that simple to be able to do. So
it costs you nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. So
no, I mean, we missed.
You know what? It not only filled her bank account, it filled yours too.
Oh, I'm a better dad.
Your heart grows 3 times when you do good things. Yeah. Right? And that's a good thing to recognize your kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say,
or anyone else.
I'd say if we take anything from that as we start to wrap up this conversation, and as is tradition when we have a guest and the conversation goes deep, is we like to give away 1 or 2 or 3 takeaways. Like, in other words, what can the listeners do? They've heard everything we had to say, but what should they start doing tomorrow, right, to start putting some of these things into practice? And I think, one thing that came to mind as you're telling that story is, don't miss an opportunity. I mean, I look back and I don't spend a minute on all my missed opportunities. Sure. I don't. I know that I have a lot more opportunity moving forward. So now, I'm committed to that recognition and that acknowledgement. And I understand not only with the people that I work with, but my own family is like, okay, I'm not going to miss an opportunity to recognize them not only for their achievements, but also for their efforts. Equally so. And if I had to give some quick advices, start doing it tomorrow. Start doing it tomorrow to the people around you. I mean, just even if you took that on personally, so forget about whether you adopt the platform or the full system, is just take on tomorrow. Right. Take it on yourself to recognize and acknowledge the people that are in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just add on that is that just put a checkbox at the top of the page of your top 3 things you're going to do today. Just put a check mark up there. And you want to fill that check mark by the end of the day. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah.
And have it be a recognition. And it could be something that they did really well. It could be something, like you said, they overcame a tremendous challenge.
Yeah.
Hey, I know that's, but keep going, you're going to get it. So I think just a little checkbox at the top. And at the end of the day, you either did it or you didn't. And you know what's great is when you see that check mark at the end of the day,
you'll do it.
Well, if you haven't done it already, you can still do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I would add.
You'll do it. So my top takeaway is going back to the recognition is great, and recognize the effort, not just the achievement.
Yeah, I love that.
My biggest blunder as a parent was to not recognize the efforts that went in, that these kids put in on things that they were struggling and still did it.
Yeah.
Man, they would have done it better had I recognized those efforts.
Yep.
No question.
And we had a lot of talk about family here, but think about the correlation between working with family, whether you're working with a partner, which you have partners in business too, whether you're working with subordinates, your children, right? These are people. They're just people. Yep. It doesn't matter how they're related to you, they're people.
Yeah.
It's going to work at home as well as it works in the workplace.
No doubt. Complete agreement. Well, Marc, tell us, before we end this, tell our listeners how they can find you.
Yeah. So the best thing to do is, because you can go, if you want to, the Lead with Purpose, you can go sign up and have a plan for free. Mm-hmm. So you can go to leadwithpurpose.com, go sign up for a plan. We take you through the entire process of setting that up. Mm-hmm. That's on the business side. And then on the family side, it's Family with Purpose. And you can take a look at all the information there.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate you coming up and spending some time with us. It's always good to hang out with you.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So,
thank you guys.
Appreciate the conversation. It's so deep, man. I got goosebumps. A couple of stories that you're telling, like, you can, because you can feel it. I can feel the energy, and I can feel, I know I have 2 daughters, right? So it's like I know the struggle as a father, and to create that connection. So I think that's what you were talking about, and what you've created in all of that is connection.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And as human beings, we need that. We strive for it, right?
Yep.
We crave it. So as always, you can find us at theceopodcast.net. Check us out on YouTube if you prefer to watch the video, or you can listen to us on all the regular channels, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and all the others. And we love to hear feedback from our listeners, so please reach out to Scott and I. We love getting suggestions for topics and everything else. And Mark, thanks so much for joining us today. Loved having you here and enjoyed the conversation. I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
so appreciate having you here.
Yeah.
Until next time, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. Please visit us at theceopodcast.net, where you can learn more about our co-hosts and listen to past episodes. If you would like to have a discussion and dive deeper into any topic, there is also an option to contact Scott or Vince to schedule some time with them. Thanks for listening.